What's the worst case of spoiled rotten that you've seen? All right, I got one. My boyfriend's little half sister. Her parents are real hippies, living at least 40 minutes from the nearest town, which doesn't have much anyway. They live on an eco friendly farmlet, which her parents built from scratch. Since the age of, say, 10, my boyfriend's sister has been taking money. It started with taking coins when she was babysitting for neighbors. Eventually, she found out where stashes of cash were kept, and the neighbors discovered the theft and told her parents. They were scared but didn't do much apart from telling her off and making her promise she wouldn't do it again. Little things like that happened, and the same outcome followed. Then her granddad passed away, leaving a share of $1 million to her mother, which was used to upgrade the farm, buy more land, etc. She took money from her late granddad's wallet in his pocket when no one was looking. All she got was a bit of a telling off. She never has to give the money back because she spends it first. Her parents just say, work it off by doing chores. Now she's 16 and her latest misdeeds have been taking her mom's card to buy $800 USD of makeup online. Her parents took the makeup from her, hoping to return it, but not before she replaced the makeup in the boxes with old bottles. They let her keep the makeup and still let her go to all her school camps, parties, etc. The last I heard, her parents started a B&B, made a couple of grand, only to have it disappear because she found out their internet banking passwords, transferred it to herself, and then spent it on food, friends, and makeup all in a weekend before they could find out. Her punishment? Working it off by doing chores. It makes me sick. I had to do chores for free. I'm still doing chores for free in my own house. This is like a textbook case of how not to discipline. Letting her off with what? Chores, washing dishes of like $800 worth of makeup? Come on. That's not going to teach her anything. They need to take a hard stance and show her actions have real consequences with real punishments. Story 2. I had a friend named Don who had two kids born a year apart. When his son turned 16, Don planned to give him his meticulously maintained Volkswagen Jetta. Don cherished his car, so despite being about 7 years old, this Jetta was in pristine condition. A vehicle most normal 16-year-olds would be thrilled to receive. I certainly would have been thrilled to have it myself. Don explained the plan to his son, who responded, Dad, I'm not driving that car. It's a 7-year-old Jetta. I need a new pickup truck. Taking a deep breath to restrain his frustration, Don calmly replied, Well then, I'll continue to drive the Jetta for another year and give it to your sister when she turns 16. If you want a new pickup truck, you'll need to ask your mother or save up to buy one yourself. Don had separated from the kids' mother for years and she had made poor financial decisions, leaving her with very little money. Don had remained a successful businesswoman who was financially well off. Unfortunately, his son mistakenly believed that Don and his current wife would cover the cost of whatever he desired. How wrong he was. A year later, Don's daughter was happily driving the Jetta. Don had bought himself a brand new Mazda. His son had neither. In desperation, his son purchased a cheap $800 beater just to commute to work. Hopefully, he learned his lesson. I admire Don for standing his ground and teaching his son not to act entitled at a young age. Story 3. Back in college, I knew a girl whose father was some famous banker or something. He made enough that his wife didn't have to work and their 3 kids could attend expensive schools with little financial aid. Now, this girl didn't need to work during college. Her supplies and lodging were all paid for by her father, and she flew home every 3-day weekend, all on his expenses. Once, I had to borrow $10 from her to pay for food when we went out to eat. I promised to pay her back once I got my check the following week, and she seemed cool with it. Turns out she wasn't cool with it at all. She promptly bashed me on her blog and to all her friends, calling me a bad person and a thief, all for $10. Which I did pay back. When I confronted her about the blog post, she was very embarrassed. Last I heard, she's living in a Manhattan apartment paid for by her father, working part-time as a receptionist at a yoga studio. She started a new blog about the struggle. Story 4. I attended a very expensive private school. Personally, I had received a lot of scholarships, so I didn't have to pay the ridiculously high $52,000 per year they were asking for. At the time, the school had a very easygoing acceptance policy but was still considered prestigious, which had the interesting result of attracting very wealthy students who were more interested in the social scene than academics. In my freshman dorm, there was a girl who supposedly was a descendant of the Versace family or something similar. Judging by the money she would casually spend, I was inclined to believe it. Almost every weekend, there would be a knock on our door as she ran through the halls asking who would join her on her trip that weekend. And by trip, she didn't mean a trip to the grocery store or even back home. She meant a trip to some foreign location around the world. Sometimes it was Paris, other times Australia or Bali, wherever her heart desired. She would fly out to these places for weekends, not just during 3 day weekends or holiday breaks, but on average Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. She would be shocked and sometimes insulted when, after a moment of stunned silence, you told her that you couldn't possibly go to Paris for 3 days, let alone afford a last minute ticket. She simply couldn't comprehend that normal people couldn't afford such things. Oh, and she lived in the dorms because freshmen couldn't live off campus. However, she actually lived off campus in what I later found out to be a $4,000 a month apartment, all by herself with a daily house cleaner. She was the most detached from reality person I've ever met, and of course, she was absolutely gorgeous. She'll probably never have to experience a hard time in her entire life or even have to work a single day. Story 5. During my freshman year of college, there was a kid with extremely wealthy parents, possibly from India. He was widely disliked because he would always show off how wealthy his family was. He never studied and constantly interrupted the professor over trivial matters, preventing the rest of us from learning. It got so bad that some of us started going to the department chairs to complain that we couldn't pass tests because the professor never taught us anything, always catering to this guy. He didn't want to live in the US or attend college, he just wanted to live as a wealthy socialite for life. However, his parents insisted he attend college in the US so they could boast to their friends about his education. He lived on an allowance, $1 million a month. His parents were pleased when he said he was taking the train until they realized it was a public service and he didn't own the train. They then ordered him to buy a luxury sports car and cut off his allowance until he sent them a photo with it. Proudly, they told their friends he drove a luxury sports car, prompting them to buy their kids one too. This led to his allowance being cut off again, with his parents demanding he purchase another car and send another picture. Complaining that choosing was too much effort, he called the Lamborghini dealer and ordered one in a different color. His parents were furious to see he had bought the same car again, so they cut off his allowance once more and insisted he buy a third luxury sports car from a different brand. So he bought a Ferrari. The university required all of out of state students to live in dorms. Upon arrival, his parents demanded he purchase an apartment building and move into it. He bought one, informed everyone their leases were ending, and moved in with his friends rent free. However, they had to constantly flatter him. If he called at 2 a.m. before a final exam demanding ice cream, you had to get dressed and go out in the snow to get it, or he would evict you. He was failing all his classes and didn't care. Strangely, he got excellent grades on all his homework but failed all his tests. Ironically, there was another kid in many of my classes, very humble with a great sense of humor whom everyone loved. It turned out his family was much wealthier, but he'd been raised properly. Story 6. Let me explain the story of the most spoiled brat I have ever met. My girlfriend babysits for a very wealthy family with 3 little girls and a stay-at-home mom. I occasionally help out from time to time. So my girlfriend and the mom text each other to schedule times when she's needed. The only problem is that the mom is so irresponsible that she only schedules things on the spot. She'll literally have my girlfriend clear her schedule all day just to wait for a text saying, "Okay, I need you now." My girlfriend usually spends around 6 to 10 hours a day, 4 to 5 times a week with this family. What's worse, sometimes the mom will be home when my girlfriend is there. For example, my girlfriend will get up early in the morning to go to this family's house, feed the kids breakfast after they wake up, and take them to school. Where's the mom? In bed, sleeping. What's even worse, on nights when my girlfriend stays until 12 to 1 a.m., putting the kids to bed and doing chores. The mom is out, playing away the household's income. We know this because she loves to boast and how much she wins. What's even more frustrating, in the final weeks that my girlfriend worked for this family, she asked the mom to set up a proper schedule so she wouldn't have to wait around all day for text. The mom agreed to set up a schedule but never actually did anything about it. So in my girlfriend's last week, she explained that she wouldn't babysit anymore, and the mom reacted by texting my girlfriend that she, quote, had been thrown under the bus and that she's struggling to find a new sitter. Wow! Moms, that's another level of mom dumb that I've never heard of. Her behavior is definitely beyond belief. His girlfriend deserves so much better than to be treated like that, right? And if you're feeling me and you're also shaking your head like me at this mother, please also don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button to stay updated with more jaw dropping tales. Let's go on to the next story. Story 7. I have several stories about my sister who is now 24 years old. Most of these stories take place when she was younger. The first instance happened on her birthday when Apple introduced the iPad. She had to have one. My parents, who work very hard, couldn't really afford the hefty price tag. So when her birthday came around and she found out she wasn't getting the iPad, she lost her temper, locked herself in her room, and trashed it. When my sister was old enough to drive, my parents bought her a Chevy Malibu. It was an old lady's car, so it only had like 20 miles on it. When it came time for me to drive, I was told that I had to pay for my own car and insurance while still in high school, with that full time job I needed to get. My parents treat my sister so much differently than they treat me. My mom would always tell me, "Oh, you need to go to college or you'll be working at McDonald's asking people if they want fries with that." So I went to college and got an associate's degree. When it came time for my sister to graduate high school and attend college, my parents didn't pressure her at all, like not one bit. And where do you think she ended up? That's right, Burger King. All my parents would praise her for working there and how hard she worked. Meanwhile, I was dismissed from my job at the county courthouse. My sister attended community college for maybe like 5 months before she said, "I can't do it anymore, it's too hard." If I had said that, oh man, I would have been kicked to the curb for sure, no doubt. But no, they didn't give her any sort of punishment for dropping out. My parents would do anything for my sister. Since she was the youngest, she got whatever she wanted. Me, not so much. I was told that I had to work for stuff that I wanted, which I did. My parents told me while in high school that I needed to work full time. I was a senior in high school, told to get a full time job. I worked every day after school until 9 p.m., and on weekends, I made like nothing, too. Back then, minimum wage was, I think, $5 and a quarter. Anyway, when my sister was in high school, they never told her she needed to get a job. They just did everything for her. They bought her whatever she wanted. If she didn't get it, she would just throw tantrums anywhere in the house. I remember one time she hurt my mom over something I can't really remember now. Fast forward though, my husband and I had our first child, a little girl. We asked my sister, who was not working at the time, surprise, to watch her for us, and we would pay her. She would watch her, yes, but she would also proceed to sit on our couch all day long and watch TV. Anyway, when it would come close to payday, she would ask us to pay her immediately or she wouldn't watch our child. She would say the most mean things imaginable to me, like, "I'm the one here all day watching your kid while you work," or, "I'm not a daycare, I'm just here to watch her so I don't have to do anything." There were days, and I kid you not, where she wouldn't even feed my daughter her lunch and I had to tell her to do it. And when I would ask, she would say things like, "Oh, she isn't hungry," or "I did." Keep in mind, we had a nanny cam, so I could see her. This was the last straw we had with her. The morning she was due to watch our daughter, she came into our house all upset. She proceeded to tell my husband that she works all week and doesn't have time to herself. She sits on the couch all day long watching TV. My husband then asked her to leave our home and closed our door right in front of my daughter. We haven't talked to her since. Oh, one last thing. My sister managed to rack up $5,000 in credit card debt, buying unreasonable things like Legos, Disney this, and Disney that. She lives with her boyfriend too, so who do you think pays for all her bills? He does. Granted, she does work now, first full time job in her life. She makes him buy her orders off Amazon all the time. Since it's Girl Scout cookie season, she made him buy her 4 boxes of Thin Mints. My sister, being the huge oaf she is, probably ate them all already. Anyone getting vibes of Rachel's younger sister who was exactly spoiled the same way from the TV series Friends? I forget the sister's name, but you know what I do remember about Rachel's younger spoiled sister? Is that she was hot. So I wonder if her sister was hot too. Story 8. For my son's 3rd birthday party, my sister and her daughter met us in a centrally located city. As my son proceeds to open his gifts, my niece is going literally excited over what he's getting. He opens up a gift we bought for him, a Leapfrog gaming system. My son is the most generous little human I know. He lets her open the toy and gives her the first turn, but she does not want to give it back to him. She held on to it, and my son was all, well, like, what? Confused. Little man confused. So my sister just thinks it's cute and funny. Meanwhile, I'm irritated on the inside. While all of this is happening, my mother and other sister disappear. They show up 30 minutes later with something wrapped up. I think, "Aw, that's nice, another present for my son." But nope, it was a brand new leapfrog for my niece. Right when she sees the gift, she drops down my boy's leapfrog to the floor and it snaps in front of him. Now, my boy is in tears and she is happy as a clam opening yet another gift on my son's birthday. And does she give him any turns on her new toy? Nope, not even one turn. 2 hours later, and another $125 down the drain, I returned with another one. My mom feels bad and tries to pay me for the new one, but I was so upset I told her to save it because she's gonna need it for future granddaughter expenses. That was 7 years ago, and to this day, I am still upset about that incident. So, fast forward to last summer, we went on a vacation with the same sister and her family. We head to the local Canadian Tire to get some supplies for a float down the local channel. Sister's middle child tags along with his friend. We do our thing and head to the cash register. I throw our things on the counter, and all of a sudden, a football, 2 sets of goggles, and 2 expensive water toys mysteriously end up in our pile. I tell my nephew, I'm not paying for all of this stuff. He throws a tantrum in the store, telling me not to be so cheap and that his other uncles would have paid for those. We get back to our rental, and he scolds me again in front of his mom and dad. Now, my brother in law thinks I'm the worst uncle ever, and my sister laughs it off as if it was cute once again. Story 9. My ex husband, whom I supported for 11 of the 13 years we were married, was an opera singer who frequently traveled around the country for pointless auditions that, in reality, he had no chance of succeeding in. I paid off his student debt, put him through his last year of college, paid all the bills, managed the finances and budgeting, and was relatively cheerful about it at first, thinking that part of a partnership involves trading off so both people can work towards their goals. This guy would flinch and go bananas if anything remotely critical was said to him and respond to simple requests to clean around the house by saying, "Oh, so you just think I'm your assistant?" He left me for another guy literally 3 months after I nursed him back to full strength from having a triple spinal fusion. For a guy nearly 20 years his junior who works at Old Navy and runs a YouTube channel about his doll collecting hobby. After a few months of dealing with the separation, it became clear to me that even after 13 years, I still dodged a bullet because I might be with that useless guy if he hadn't left me. He's started delivering pizzas and working for Amazon in the mornings. On one hand, reality has finally set in on what it takes to pay the bills. But on the other hand, I'm pretty irritated that he couldn't have made half the effort he does now when we were still together. On the plus side, I'm still on very good terms with my in laws, which includes 6 combined nephews and nieces. They are all upset with him for leaving, as well as refusing to drive his own mother to doctor's appointments when he wasn't working, using the excuse of, "Well, I need to go to the gym," because he got upset that one of the times he took her, a 90-minute appointment ended up taking 3 hours and he didn't like losing his day. Story 10. A few years ago, my mom had a health condition and underwent a surgery. She was out of work for a while, and my brother and I had to work more hours to help with the majority of the bills and groceries. Now, at the time, my girlfriend couldn't seem to understand why I wasn't willing to spend hundreds of dollars on a tux and prom expenses. She asked me every day if we were going until I finally told her, sarcastically, that I was sorry my mom had a health condition and surgery and that I had to help with bills. She finally stopped asking, but instead she cried to her friends at school, completely leaving out the health condition part. I only found out last week when one of her friends got hired at my job and told me about it. We later broke up, surprise, because she betrayed me and spread rumors that I had hurt her. I've never been in a dispute in my life, and I'm afraid to hurt anyone because I'm not confrontational. Not at all. I guess for her, prom took priority over helping my mom, who had a health condition. Ugh. All right, well, if you like these stories and you resonated with any one of them, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video, and thanks for hanging with me on this one.